Yeah, hi, this is Tanveer Muhammad Masood, and in this part of my video, I would be talking on certain concepts of economics, and since economics is one of my favorite subjects to talk, I would be trying to explain in details about the concept of money, about the origin of money as we use it today in the present form of currencies. Now, what exactly is the origin of money, and how exactly it passed through different stages and phases of evolution, and it originated in a present form of currency or paper money that we use it as of today. So the first and foremost formation of money was in the form of the commodity stage, or we call it the commodity form of money. The first and foremost form of money was the commodity form. Now, this was during the ancient days, during the days of Chalukyas, the Cholas, and the very early ancient period that we might have gone through history. Everybody has gone through the early period of the rulers that were here in India and other parts of the world. They basically used to exchange cattle, cows, even commodities like tea, salt, even animals, as I said, like cows and cattle, even goats and sheep used to be exchanged for purchasing something, for buying something, because there was no standard point. There was nothing like standardization of money. There was no standard form of money. Therefore, at that point of time, people out there used to transact, or rather deal in certain transactions. In older days, in ancient days, people used to transact, or rather they used to meet their daily transactions by way of exchanging goats, sheep, other animals, as well as commodities and stuff like sugar, tea, and the vegetables. They're also used as a form of exchanging or buying something. So this was the first phase, or the first stage of transaction, or the first phase of the origin of or the evolution of money. And there were certain loopholes or drawbacks of this form of transaction. The most and foremost loophole, or the most and important drawback of this form of transaction was that it was not quite standardized. In fact, for example, in case of animals like buffaloes, cattle, they were really very bulky and very huge, and there were some problems like storage of such animals. There were a shortage of space to store them, and the buyer or the seller used to face a real difficulty in receiving that animal or cattle, and they used to face the shortage of place where they would place, or rather they would store this animal. So that was the first and foremost difficulty they had to face, and this was the biggest drawback that led to its extinction, to its abolition altogether. And this was the phase wherein it was quite rampant, this sort of transaction, but owing to certain difficulties, as I mentioned, because of the bulk size of commodities, it had to be abolished. Apart from that, there were certain other perishable products such as vegetables, or certain products like meat, were like not quite store. They were not quite perishable. In fact, they were perishable in nature. They were not in a position to be kept for a long time, and that was one of the most important reasons why it could be, or rather, it could not be taken up with in another form, or rather in other form or other phase of its evolution. So this was the first phase, the commodity stage, and it was due to reasons, as I have already mentioned, that it could not be taken up with, and people found it really difficult and hard to carry out certain transactions. So the second phase or the second part of the evolution of money was the metallic stage or the age of metals. There were small metals that had a small hole in between it, and they were basically used for carrying out transactions, day-to-day expenditures, carrying out huge business transactions on the basis of buying or rather exchanging those metals for buying certain commodities or buying certain products for the daily necessities, buying houses, selling houses. They were basically carried out by exchanging metals, and that was the mode of money at that point of time. This was largely prevalent during the period of Alexander the Great, and even during the Mughal period it was carried out. They were metals made of silver and gold, and they were the most standardized form of transaction or any sort of business transaction that was carried out those days. But it could not be carried out due to reasons such as lack of proper weightage facility. Metals like gold and silver could not be weighted properly, and that was the most important reason why it could not be carried out, or why people tried or rather thought that it's not worthwhile to go ahead with this form of transaction, with this form of a mode of money at that point of time, though it was very popular, and the Mughals had their statues, their pictures, their images inscribed on such metals. We have several Mughal rulers who had their images inscribed on metal coins, and it was basically made of metal, and it became popular during the Mughal period most. And as I said, that there were many rulers who made it a point to make sure that their images were to be inscribed on the metals. You have Alexander the Great who did it. We have several Mughal rulers, Sultanate rulers, who did the same thing to ensure that they have this monopoly on the financial transactions on the coin that is basically circulating throughout the country or throughout the nation or through other parts of the world. So this was quite popular, and it could not be carried out because of a reason such as the most important reason was the weight problem. It could not be weighted properly. There was no standard unit of weighting it properly, and that was the biggest problem that people faced during those days, and that was the reason for its extinction and abolition. Well, the third stage or the third phase was the paper age, the age of papers. People used to store, or rather they used to deposit their gold, silver, other precious metals with a goldsmith or any person who used to keep those precious metals with himself, and they used to give back a certain paper. It was basically an acknowledgement of the deposit that was done by the people who were depositing those precious metals. Actually, goldsmiths were the one who used to receive those gold, deposit those gold, and against that deposit he used to pay back or return a certain amount of, or rather a paper of acknowledgement stating that the certain such and such person has deposited such and such amount of metal, and these are very precious metals, and the person who is depositing can take it back on demand. So this was basically the age of goldsmith, where the depositors used to deposit their golds and silvers, and it was returnable on demand by the depositor. It was during this phase of time, during this period, banks came up, the banks which were basically recognized by government agencies or the rulers. They came up, and they basically originated at this kind of time, and they took up, or rather they associated themselves with goldsmiths and people who used to take money, or the merchants They used to take money and give back a receipt of such deposit. They had this association with such people, and after that, what happened is that a full-fledged way, in a very full-fledged way, banks started doing business, and they were the one who were closely monitoring and transacting the business with the depositors or merchandisers at times. And after that, even banks started receiving deposits from depositors of gold and silver. They started issuing paper notes or acknowledgement of receipt of all the deposits that are basically done by the issuer, by the people or by the public who are basically depositing their money or the precious metals or any other thing which are basically precious in nature. They are depositing, and against that deposit, the banks even started giving those acknowledgement of deposit to the depositors, which was basically payable on demand, like we have in the present day scenario. Now, the next phase was the phase of paper notes. Since banks started doing business in a full-fledged way, there was this phase of paper money or paper notes coming up, and people were really interested. And this was basically an era of coins of 5 paise, 10 paise, or even 50 paise. 1 paise started coming up and started circulating in the market in the entire nation, and this was happening after the British rule. In fact, after 1920s, 25, after 1930s, in fact, before rather when the British were ruling this country, the phase of coins started up, and this was the age when banks were in the business in a full-fledged way, and they were basically taking up all the activities of goldsmith and people who were basically doing business of accepting money and accepting golds or accepting precious metals, and after that returning those gold or metals after paying out an acknowledgement of deposit. So this was the phase of basically coins, and it was basically 5 paise coin, 10 paise coin, and it came up. It was basically being carried out in a very full-fledged way. Along with paper money, coin money also started. As I said, it started doing business, and both paper and coin money were running side by side, and they are getting circulated throughout the economy in different parts of the world by way of international transaction as well. It was going from one part of the country to another part, from one country to another country, and it started revolving throughout the world by way of international business and international transaction and trade that was carried out when rulers started, rather when they became aware that something needs to be done to stimulate the economy of the country. So that was when international transaction came up as well. So, and that was another reason behind the circulation of money from one part of the world to another part. That stage of circulation of money, or rather the origin of money or the evolution of money, was is the deposit age, the age wherein people deposit their money to the bank against a receipt, and that money goes to a particular coffer of the bank, which is basically payable to anyone who has his deposit of receipt from the bank. So it's basically the age of deposit with the bank, and which is payable on demand. And check is another form wherein a person can withdraw, or rather authorize anyone to withdraw any sort of any amount of money or deposit any amount of money in any bank by way of this medium of check. So it's the most upgraded and most technically sound form of financial transaction these days, and this is the last stage of evolution of money. As of now, this is the last stage, and in future we are really quite curious to find out as to what exactly is going to be the fate of monetary transactions, given the technological upgradation and research and development work that is being carried out with length and breadth throughout these days. The development and research work that is being carried out these days are basically very in nature, and that's the reason why we are keeping our fingers crossed as to the further origin of money. No matter it's going to be a real complicated one, and it's really going to be a really interesting one, because these days we have currencies and little coins. Coins are basically used to carry out small transactions in very remote parts of our country these days, but paper currencies are being circulated, are rather being used as a mode of transaction. We have 10 rupee coin, 10 rupee coin as well. We have 10 rupee note as well. We have 20 rupees note as well. We have 50, 100, 1000 notes as well. So we have these paper currency notes doing around throughout these days, and this is the most upgraded mode of monetary transaction as of now.